of the Asian players, Kai Soto right now, that
Shout
he
out
was,
Casoto.
let's say, one of the he was part of the Ignite and was in Australia right now.
I love this kid. He's one of the international players that I paid attention to.
You are someone that needs to tell him straight up that this is not how it should be, and you need to solve this because otherwise you're losing this, and I don't want to be part of it. Sometimes that's what it takes.
Like, I just want to play ball and ride horses like Jokic. Like, to me, that's crazy. What's up, ballers? Welcome to Courtside Culture Podcast, episode 2. And today we have a very special guest and a new addition to our team. We have Tadas Bulotas. And I'm so sorry if I messed your name up. And we all know I'm terrible with Lithuanian and European names. So it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast today. And I hope you're doing well. How's it going today?
Going well. You actually did pretty good saying my name. So doing good, man. I'm in Berlin. Had pretty long trip. Just got back last week, but other than that, I've been doing pretty well.
How is Berlin? I've actually never been to Germany.
I mean, Berlin is probably a lot of things, and you can find everything that you're looking for, kind of. That's, I think, the beauty of the city. Very diverse, different type of stuff you can get. It's for younger, older, and I don't know, any culture. I think you can kind of find your spots, in the city.
Yeah.
So I really been enjoying it.
That's what's up, man. I definitely got to. I haven't been to Europe yet, so it's definitely a trip I want to make. I've been talking to Simon about going to Lithuania. So we'll
Should.
definitely, yeah. I definitely want to go to a ball game. I've watched them in FIBA and a whole bunch of other stuff, but enough about that. Let's get into you. Just a quick introduction of Tadas. Tadas is the VP of International Basketball at Wasserman Media Group. Is 15 plus years of management and experience in NBA, Euro, and Australian leagues, which is really dope. And he is now the head of basketball partnerships at Basketballverse, which is the sponsor of this actual podcast. So it's a pleasure to have him on, and we're going to get more into about who Tadas is and what his role is at Basketballverse and helping us out with our vision, right? So I guess let's just start. Like, Tadas, how does it start? Like, how do you get into this? I know your father was an agent. Is that one of the main reasons you got into it, or was it?
Kind of, so my dad was, yeah, he probably was one of the first agents, and in Lithuania for sure the first one that was kind of working in this field. He wasn't an agent. He was actually working for a big Italian agency, and probably most known, Italian agent at the time. He was really controlling the market, like all-time mafia times, where he was making all of the decisions of how the teams will be created and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, my dad was also, before working for an agency, he also worked as a sports director on second best team in Lithuania, and from that team, actually, Big Z, Žydrūnas Ilgauskas, went to NBA.
Yeah.
And to Cleveland Cavaliers, and my dad was kind of the main guy on the team, helping him out, got really close with him. So I was growing up with Big Z around the house, and
That's dope.
my dad just working in the field. And then when Big Z went to US to play in NBA, this is when my dad kind of found out of the agent work, because up until then nobody really knew what it is. And I think kind of after that he started working for the agency, then also became a scout for the same Cleveland Cavaliers. And he wasn't, he didn't really speak English, and so I was doing a lot of his like scouting reports for Cleveland, as because I went to high school in US, so I knew English well, and my dad would do the reports in Lithuanian, and now I would translate those. But to be honest, man, like, I didn't really want to be an agent for quite some time, just because this like following the footsteps and every like
Yeah.
teenage stuff and whatever young man stuff, not really going the same footsteps and trying to do your own thing. And this was me, like, all the time I was thinking the same way.
Hmm.
But it just came down to the point where my dad was kind of retiring, not happy. The situation with his employer was pretty bad, and he was losing guys that he brought to the agency.
Yeah.
So he was losing clients. He was losing the respect, let's say, in the market because of the Italian agency. And at that time, I was doing my own thing. Let's say I was working as a business consultant and stuff. And but so I saw kind of like he's losing what he built for so many years, and
Yeah.
there's all these contacts that I've been around, from NBA to EuroLeague and all of the other places. And I thought, shit, I mean, it doesn't make sense to lose all of that.
Exactly.
And this is when I decided, okay, like I need to take control of this. Like we shouldn't be losing this opportunity, because it's really difficult to step into this market.
Yeah. 1,000%. And did you face any like, I mean, like in your own mental, like, because I know you have situations where you have like Michael Jordan, right? And he had three sons, and none of them could amount to kind of like where he was. Do you go through that, like trying to basically be as good or better as your father to continue the legacy on? Is that a struggle you go through?
Um, Probably it was time when everybody was calling me. So this is the son of Virgis, who's
Yeah.
my dad's name is Virgis, and he everybody thought of me as the younger Virgis, whatever. and
Hmm.
and I think we came down to the time now that he's known to be my dad, so it's vice versa. So when
Gotcha.
I took the like when I decided to go all in, I knew what I need to do to make it, let's say, in a better way than he did. And that's why I opened up my own business. That's why I wasn't working for anyone. There was a lot of stuff that I did to make sure that somehow, at least I tried to avoid the failures that didn't add up to my dad's success. And but yeah, that's a good question. I think it was funny because at some point there was an email sent to my dad, because he just recently worked for a Lithuanian basketball team as a sports director again.
Yeah.
And he got an email from one of the scouts. I think it was from the Pelicans, maybe. And he emailed my dad that I congratulate you for achieving the biggest goal in your life, because your son Tadas is now known as a more successful person, and you're actually known as a dad of Tadas, instead of he's known as a son of Virgis. So
Moscow.
it was kind of funny.
But that just continues the legacy of showing like greatness in your family. And that's a beautiful sight to see, man. I love to see it. Families continuing legacies. I like had talks with my grandmother not too long ago about like the legacy of our family and stuff like that. So it's really dope to see it like actually in person, and super dope. But that's cool that you got to like really grow up around people like Big Zeke. And are there any other players that you kind of like remember from your childhood?
I mean, mainly Lithuanians. We, as an agency, we were also around, Gazol brothers. So I kind of, saw some of these guys. Obviously, Sabonis was also part of the same agency group, So all of the bigger names coming out of Lithuania were actually in the same company. And then Kleza, I think LK was there too, and then also like Manu Ginobili, Gazol brothers, like
Let's
all
go.
these guys were also with the same agency, but I wasn't really around them. My dad was taking care of the Lithuanian crew.
Yeah. And you say those names, it just like shows like the tenure of European players throughout the years of the NBA and stuff. I'm just like thinking of these guys because like I watched Mano and Tim Duncan and Tony Parker and them as I was growing up. And it's really cool to like hear people who've actually like encountered these people. Like those are legends. In my opinion, Mano was a freaking dog. Like not too many more like him. That Spurs team was insane. Hopefully they can get back to it. I mean, Wemby's a good look for them, but I think they got a lot more to build on top of him to get there. So really,
100%.
yeah, really dope. So let's get into more of like the more of you as an agent and the stuff you went through or the stuff you go through, right? I guess we could start here. You have situations like we can take last year and the last like 2 years, right? You have John Morant, who's a really electric player, but found himself getting into a lot of trouble off the court, right? How do you approach situations like this with your players, seeing that it could be very detrimental to their career? Like, what is your approach to helping the player get back on track and stay out of trouble?
Well, I think it starts even really before that. I think it's a matter of how you build a connection with your client, and how close you guys are, and will he actually listen, or a lot of agents or a lot of people around them don't really want to say something they don't want to hear. And that's the safe zone. I consider myself an agent with, again, it also came with experience, that is not afraid to actually say something that I think is going wrong, and then it's on the client, does he want to listen or not,
Yeah.
and that's how it is. So I think when it comes down to these type of situations, you just literally have to make sure you have built the relationship that it has to be, because you're not his best friend, you're not his best buddy going out, and having fun, but you're someone that needs to tell him straight up that this is not how it should be, and you need to solve this, because otherwise you're losing this, and I don't want to be part of it. Sometimes that's what it takes, for him to keep losing people around him, instead of just someone just saying, oh, that's okay, like we can still fix it. um I think that's important.
Yeah. I mean, they always say you never really miss something until it's gone, right? And you don't
No.
really understand the multitude of how it helped you or how it was beneficial to you until it's actually gone. So it's a really great answer. Could you share other key elements of like a successful player relationship, like player agent relationship? I feel like that's really important what you said as far as like having that successful player agent relationship is like being honest and making sure they hear what they need to hear and not what they want to hear. Are there any other things that like you use in order to keep that relationship going well and their career going on the right path?
I mean, bottom line is, the work that I'm doing is all based on the relationship, right? I mean, it's at least the way I see it, and and when it comes to guidance, and talking to them what they need to hear instead of what they want to hear, it also comes with experience. So sometimes I've definitely have said something to the clients that I wasn't supposed to be telling them, or something like that. But 15 years of work now, I think you have to be honest with them from the beginning. We have to be you. We have to be yourself. They have to like you as a person first, and then trust you as an agent, with your experience. And it has to start from the beginning. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think this is where I take big pride in. I think that I have normally I try to build those relationships, which are long lasting, and hopefully I'm there around throughout their whole career. um, but honesty is one of the main things that that the true relationships everywhere, I feel like, are built on.
Yeah. And that's a big thing because when it comes to players, they're normally in the limelight. And the issue with being in the limelight is people always want to be around you, so they're gonna say what you want to hear. They're gonna be yes men, and you need somebody in your corner that's that stern voice, like, nah, that's not right, dude. Like, we got to do it this way, or this is gonna throw you off track and stuff like that. So, great to see like these players have someone like you in their corner that actually will be honest with them. I know it's you see a lot of like players talking bad about agents after they leave and like shicey things they do. So it's good to see some good, genuine agents out here helping out. Um, so a lot of stuff goes with you being an agent. One of them is basically monetizing your client, right? Making sure they get endorsements and sponsorships. How challenging is it to handle like negotiations with these endorsements and sponsorships?
Um, Well, it comes down to the product, right? I mean, and the product for us is the client. You know, it's actually how good he is. So I always say, or we always say at Wasserman, you know, is we have to focus on the thing that actually matters, which is getting better and playing well. I think if that part is going great, then it is not too complicated to negotiate sponsorships and stuff like that because you're wanted. Obviously, we need to, make a marketing strategy, like, where the name is interesting, like what is your angle in the market that you can sell, what makes you interesting, and all of that stuff. We have the whole, group behind us. It's not really my job, but I would, be the one talking to the client, going over these opportunities and deciding what is best for him, knowing his personality, knowing his lifestyle, his off time and stuff. But bottom line, I think you cannot be scrapping for stuff up until you're not really created, or like you're not really mature as a player of who you are on the court.
Yeah.
Because bottom line, everybody would want you sponsor, or more, be on those marketing deals because of who you are on the court, right? Not because of how you look. So, I
Exactly.
mean, it's also important for somebody, but like the first thing, everybody has to know you as a basketball player.
100%. And do you find it, because like I mentioned, you worked with NBA, EuroLeague, and Australian players. Do you find it harder finding endorsements and sponsorships in those smaller markets like the EuroLeague and Australia versus the NBA?
Yeah, I think all in all, it's United States is, on a different, spectrum, let's say, when it's
Exactly.
especially when it comes to, marketing and sponsoring and all of that stuff, just because of the audience, the number of people are actually watching those games. Everywhere else is a little bit scattered, even though EuroLeague is, and also Australian League is, growing significantly, and I think each year it's getting better and better, but it's still at the point where it gets more interesting, but it's more interesting for the brands to actually sponsor teams and leagues. I think the next step will be making more marketing opportunities for the players. So the
Yeah,
landscape is definitely, different at this moment.
got you. Got you. And uh so let's move on a bit. Got a few more questions for you in this segment. And then we're gonna move on a bit and talk more about basketball verse. But um we kind of talked a little bit about this. Well, here, let's get into this. What are some of your key factors and you consider when negotiating contracts for your clients? Because we just kind of talked about that, but like, what are some of the key factors once you actually get these deals and they come across your table? Like, what are the things where you're like, okay, this is for my client or this isn't? What are the key factors in your determination process?
Well, it depends on the stage of the career, right?
Yeah,
You're really, there's a cycle, there's a start, then there's, in maturity where you're at your best, and then it kind of, then you hopefully can keep that level for quite some time, and then it goes down, right? So up until you reach your best performance level, whenever it is, you try to make, the key thing for negotiations is actually to make sure that you're flexible, and you can get actually the best deal possible when you reach your peak. Up until then, you need to make sure you are in best position possible to showcase yourself, to develop, to get better. And then potentially, when you're actually there, your agent has a chance to, make sure he can get the best deal possible on the market. So that means you have an option there, or you're a free agent there, and stuff like that. So I think that's what's key. And then from that point, obviously maximizing, or, you know, keeping the legacy, or meaning, like whatever your preference is it, make most money possible, win as much as possible, or whatever that is, based on the client and what he wants to do.
Okay. So I like how you said that, like, make as much as possible or win as much as possible. Without like naming any names or anything, do you feel like the spectrum is more on the make as much as possible or win as much as possible with the clients that you've worked with?
I would say majority still make as much as possible,
Yeah,
because bottom line, not everybody has that thing
exactly.
in themselves, right? To be leaders throughout the whole life, and or whatever. And when you think about it, like how many people will actually remember, I don't even know, Chris Paul, or I don't know, some of these guys that are great, amazing players, right?
Yeah,
But in 20, 30 years from now, I don't know how many of those will be remembered apart from LeBron James and I don't know, Kevin
the Kobe
Durant, even Kevin
Bryants and
Durant, like,
yeah,
or yeah, like, okay, cool, yeah, exactly. Like, we can name, I don't know, five players
yeah,
that will just be there forever. But other than that, they will be forgotten. But their wealth, can help the families and can, have a legacy on their own, let's say.
yeah. So you're working with these players, and like I've done a bit of research. I see you start working with players pretty young. Um, you start looking at players pretty young, and that's kind of more of a common thing, I guess, in Euro than here, just because you guys have a totally different structure. Like Simon broke down the structure of like how European basketball is with the regional teams and stuff like that. Um, what's your process for like preparing these players for the draft if they're going to the NBA or team trials as far as like getting on the country team or the regional team? Like, what's your process of
Yep.
preparing a player once you get them?
Yeah, so in Europe, the main difference is we don't have this, let's say, high school, college route, where players are kind of independent because they still study and stuff. Like if you want to play in the highest competition level in Europe, you have to be joining a professional team really early that plays, second or third professional leagues. So that could be anywhere between 15, 16, 17. That's the first stage where you have to try to map it out and see where it's best for him to develop, and could be by position. It could be, I mean, same way Americans try to choose, colleges they go to and stuff. And then, so with European clients, it actually takes a lot of time, until you get to the draft. In US, it's a little bit different because a lot of times you just recruit guys, who decided to go to the draft or, leave college. So it's how to say, like it's a completely two different, stories.
Yeah,
um, but both, would go to our practice facilities in LA, prepare for the workouts, do the combine, and we also have our pro day where all of the NBA teams would come and watch them work out, and then throughout June they would fly to individual workouts with the teams.
gotcha. All right. So let's move on a bit. We talked a lot about like struggles of an agent. It was very great answers, a really great insight on how it is to look through the eyes of an agent, right? And then the mindset of an agent. So doing all of that, you've done that the last 15 years, and it kind of led you to what the main thing about us talking about today is you joining the Basketballverse team with us, right? So welcome to the team. Glad to have
Thank
you.
you.
I've heard many great things about you before you came, so it's amazing to get to meet you in person and have you on the team. And um, so you come in and you are our head of basketball partnerships at Basketballverse. Can you explain to the people kind of more of what that means?
Yeah, so I mean, bottom line, to start with, I knew Simon for quite some time, and just seeing such a an ambitious and interesting project coming out of my home country, just I couldn't, let's say, look the other way and not try to join and help in any way possible. So when it comes to, my work is just connections. Try to put, the team with the right people in the basketball landscape, where, like I said, just working in this field for so many years, I either know most of the people in the business myself, or it's through one or two people that I know, that I can reach out to. So I think this is where I can really, help and identify, let's say, players, professional players that are interested in this field, identifying players that could be interesting, for the in-game, stuff, where it comes to like their signature moves and stuff like that. So that would be, but again, I'm ready to help any way possible, just because I feel obligated, because of where this project is coming from.
Yeah. Which is amazing because I think it's a common tune in Lithuanian culture of like just teamwork. Um, like I told Simon when I watched the FIBA Cup last year and um Lithuania played the US, those boys were balling, right? And what I noticed was it just seemed like they were so in sync with each other. Um, from JV to Marius to the rest of them, like they were just all in the same accord the entire time. And I just feel like it's something within your culture that makes you guys just like work together so well. And I love to see it, honestly. I'm learning so much about Lithuanian culture and like how you guys work together. And it's really cool to see, man. It's very motivational and inspirational as well. Um,
Awesome.
and
Thank you. I mean, also, sorry to interrupt,
no, go ahead.
but just coming back to that game, Karinauskas, the lefty that was posting our briefs, is actually one of my first clients. So we gotta get him on the game with the signature post up moves.
Let's go. All right. So I meant you mentioned like basically involving the players and stuff, and um, how important is it to involve players in IPs to enhance their brand visibility? Like how on a scale of like 1 to 10, how do you feel of importance that is?
Again, it goes, person by person. Like some of them are super interested and super, let's say, excited, but anything like that. A lot of them, they spend a lot of time, playing games and stuff like that. So I think for these guys, it's definitely, interesting and important, and especially if they can make some money out of it. To others, they just don't care. They would,
Yeah.
tell Jokic about something related, to this, and he would say, I'm riding my horses,
I'm
and
about to say if it was a
I don't
horse
care,
game, he'd be in. We got to make a horse
So
racing game. He's
yeah,
definitely in for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. I
Yeah,
agree.
I could definitely see that. I could see more of I see the European players have a lot of different motivation than American players. America's a big consumer like country. Like we're all about like buy this, sell this, look good, this, that. And you go to Europe and other places. Like I just came back from Mexico City and on Sunday, and it's totally different. Like it's not the same motivation to do things, right? And I feel like that plays into like when the European players come across stuff like this is like legacy and family and stuff like that is much more important to them than monetary things. Um, I wish it was a lot more like that in the US. And but you know, it it gives that good distinctive values. Like it shows those distinctive values in those players when they can do stuff like, hey, like I just want to play ball and ride horses, like Jokic. Like to me, that's crazy. Like I love it, and to see how happy he is doing it, is really cool because I mean I've seen a lot of unhappy players and just like you could tell they don't want to do the deals. They're doing it for the money. They're trying to keep things going and stuff. So it's really dope. So what other aspects of Basketballverse kind of intrigued you? I know like it being from Lithuania and stuff like that. Like, is there any other key things that like Simon like explained to you when he was bringing it across the table that kind of was like, hey, listen, I got to be a part of this project?
Yeah, I mean, bottom line, what I'm super intrigued about is, a long-term success of the project would potentially, um, bring, a very stable and revenue stream to these guys by not doing anything, which, some other games, I don't want to mention the names, but they
Yeah,
don't, so I
exactly.
think that's another layer of why this is super interesting. Apart from the things that I already mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a really cool game, man. I love it. We got a lot of like uh potential player lists that we want to bring on board, and we already have Mo Bamba, which is really dope. I'm an Orlando Magic fan. I haven't mentioned that yet. So he was on my team for a while. I actually love Mo Bamba. Um, Big fan, really cool guy. But it's unfortunate how he left the Magic, but things happen. But he's doing great in
Business.
Philly. I love it. They'll probably actually go to the playoffs, unlike us. So, which is cool, man. I love to see it. So I'm really excited too about like the things that are coming to fruition with it, and being able to immortalize these like signature moves and stuff like that is really cool. Also excited to see like what European players we get involved, right? um Basketball, like we said, it's a worldwide sport and it's growing everywhere, and that's another reason why I joined Basketballverse, just to kind of give you context. Is um, Me and Simon had a conversation and he kind of explained it to me. And the whole global aspect of it, I loved, right? I was a huge fan of what the US did with Messi by bringing him over here to kind of give more of the light on football here, because viewerships is just not great here for America, for soccer or football, whatever you want to call it, right? It's not great. So bringing Messi was a big thing, like getting that. And uh Basketballverse is like a global market for basketball, right? Everywhere in the world they play basketball in some form or fashion, right? And it's growing substantially in places like Australia. The EuroLeague has been expanding a lot. You got the Philippines, you have Asia. So a lot of uh a lot of markets are growing. And when Simon brought it to me, it was basically like we're building a worldwide platform for basketball. And I was like, this is the smartest thing to do, because basketball is one of the fastest growing sports globally. I think it definitely has the opportunity to be as big as a FIFA World Cup. And I think we're all doing our part to make that happen. And that's basically why I was here. Really, really intrigued and interested in like what we are gonna do. Excited to see like what's to come. Uh, but yeah, man.
I agree. Me too. Yeah, I mean, just to elaborate a little bit on this, because this is actually my field. I'm the VP of international basketball at the company, at the agency, and I just mentioned earlier I was traveling in Japan, New Zealand, Australia, and you can actually see on how fast like Japan is insane
Yeah,
how it's been growing in the last couple of years. And you can see ticket sales and everything. And the World Cup, obviously, part of the World Cup was in Japan. I think it really helped. And I was just there for, I think, 10 days, and every game was almost sold out. And you can see
sheesh.
people really enjoying the sport. And I think we can that's super super interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait till it gets more global, man. I honestly feel like I give it about 5, 6 years. I think we should be at the point where it's uh a bigger umbrella of basketball across the world. Like you have the African leagues getting started up, which is really cool. Shout out Nigeria, they got a team now. That's my ancestral country, so that was really cool. They didn't have a team for a while, so I'm glad they got that team. Um,
Yep.
and it's definitely gonna grow a lot more. For like the basketball verse community, just to kind of give them context on like players, could you name a few players that you do work with or have worked with?
Yeah, so I worked in mainly, I think I was part of 6 or 5 guys that got drafted, including, Isaiah Hartenstein, who is with New York Knicks right now.
Yep.
Isaac Bonga drafted by the Lakers, and then he was, I think, with Washington and Toronto. Then Donatas Motiejunas, who was originally drafted by the Houston Rockets and was there for quite some time.
Yeah.
Then a couple of guys that got drafted didn't end up playing in NBA. I mean, Arnoldas Kulboka actually was in NBA, drafted 55. by the Hornets, played in just G League, had a two-way. I think it was a year ago. Yeah, no, 2 years ago now. Also some of the Asian players, Kai Soto right now, that,
Shout
he
out
was,
Casoda.
let's say, one of the, he was part of the Ignite and was in Australia right now, in Japan, one of the players that I visited
He was
as well,
supposed to
just,
come to
lately.
Orlando, and I was pissed because they didn't make it happen. I was so upset. He worked out and everything. I was like, I love this kid. He's one of the international players that I paid attention to. And I'm like, this kid is a
Yeah.
beast and he will work perfect. But we were so guard heavy, so they didn't bring him in. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, and it's okay. Like, it's part of the, Kai needs to get stronger. He's actually making strides and getting better. He just had this weekend, really good FIBA break with the Philippines national team. And yeah, at some point I was Joe Chi, a Chinese player that I was helping get out of the Asian market and explore the European landscape, for him. Obviously, Domas Sabonis is our, client of our agency, and another
Damas or
big
Demontis?
fan, Domantas.
Oh,
Domas, we call
Demontis.
him
I'm sorry.
Domas
I'm
in
sorry. I'm
Lithuania.
sorry.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
cool. Shout
yeah.
out Demontis.
We call him.
That's my guy. I love watching him
Yeah,
and De'Aaron play. They're crazy over at the Kings, man.
yeah. So these are, the agency has, it's a long list. We have over 45 NBA clients.
Yeah. So I know you said that Sabonis, like and I screw his name all the time. I'm gonna see if I can get it right this time. Arvidas.
Arvidas. Yeah,
Arvidas.
almost.
Arvidas.
Yeah.
I'm close, guys. I'm working on it. Please don't hate me. Um,
No, it's
but
okay.
knowing like you knew him as well, and they are family, correct? Him and Demontis,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is there kind of like a relationship there where you like kind of know him for a while? Did you guys kind of grow up together?
So Domas, actually, Domantas, I mean, longer name, but he barely spent time in Lithuania.
Gotcha.
His dad, when he was playing, I mean, he barely played. He played in Lithuania early. Couldn't really leave Lithuania because of the Soviet Union oppression, and
Exactly.
it wasn't possible. But then he was playing in Spain for quite some time before going to NBA. And I think Domantas was born in Portland, if I'm not mistaken. So he also, barely spent time in Lithuania, I believe. I think
Gotcha.
I think he was born in Portland and was there, until his dad finished playing in NBA. Came back, probably was 6, 7, I guess, and then the whole family, for the most part, lived in Spain. Uh,
Gotcha.
so I really didn't know that Spanish agent that is, working with our agency. That's the main guy that was taking care of the family because they were living in Spain.
Hmm.
But I knew the family. I mean, there's three sons and one daughter. Great people, big family. Second son actually is now a coach on Žalgiris team in EuroLeague.
Let's go.
Was solid player. Was actually a solid player. Played in like youth national teams and stuff, and was a pro for a little bit. So great family, great basketball minds, and dad was a great player. One of the son is going to be, a future good coach. Already a pretty good coach, but just working as assistant right now. And Domantas, obviously, I think he should be an all-star,
Oh, for
but
sure.
he's
He's growing. He's
so.
he's definitely growing. I think also too it's down to the Kings to get him some more pieces to help him and De'Aaron be more of what they are. I feel like they take a lot on their plate, and they gotta get some more guys out there to help them. But that's dope to hear their story. Really cool to know about all of that, and also like just like tapping on the like Lithuania again with the whole if you guys heard him mention the oppression, um you can look it up, but Lithuania went through a big thing with the USSR, correct? And basically
Yep.
a lot of sanctions put on them and they couldn't do a lot of things. A lot of the players couldn't travel to play and they went through a lot of struggles to get there. So players like Sabonis, Arvidas, went through a lot of struggles to basically just be able to play in the US and things like that, but was one of the people who spearheaded the start of like Lithuanian players coming out. And honestly, he's probably the most influential person in Lithuanian basketball history to the younger generation. So really dope to see, man. We're gonna move to the segment of the podcast where we do Q&A, questions from the community members.
All right.
Uh, I ask community members, tell them who we have coming on, kind of give them a little context about you, and they're able to ask questions, right? So a lot of these are like gamers and people who love basketball.
Yep.
So I'll rattle off a few questions and then we'll go ahead and close out and let you go. So first question I have is from your experience, are a lot of the players you work with gamers? And I mean, I guess that's a good question since most of the
Yep.
people come from the
Yep.
basketball game. But are they
Um,
gamers, and what games do you notice they like to play a lot?
Oh, that's a question I don't really know, but for sure most of them are gamers.
Yeah,
And that's I think there's also it's kind of their coping system, like especially for those like playing overseas, traveling between continents and countries, and I think that's the way they keep in touch with their close group, and you kind of feel like family there. I that's my feeling, but I think all of the Europeans love playing FIFA, and some of them play 2K, and then I don't know, all of these shooting uh, games,
yeah,
Call of Duty and stuff.
yeah, and Fortnite stuff like that. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, very insightful. Now, next question I have, and this one's actually a good one, is what is the most underrated market outside of the US with good players, in your opinion?
Well, I guess EuroLeague is no longer underrated. I mean, people, I think by now, whoever actually watches basketball, they cannot underestimate EuroLeague, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Top 5 players, you got 3 from
Underrated.
EuroLeague.
Yeah, I think it's for American people, it's really hard to understand the way Europe overall works.
Yeah.
In my opinion, the league that is actually very, very tough, and I don't know if people from United States realizes it, is actually ACB, Spanish league. I think it's as tough as EuroLeague almost,
Yeah.
because you have all of the best EuroLeague teams, Euro Cup teams, Champions League teams. So I think it's definitely worth mentioning. But I have to give credit for B League in Japan as well. I think people also really underestimate the level of that league, because bottom line, all of the imports are bigs and good players, and all of the Japanese players are quick and tough, and it's a pretty difficult. It's not like China where you actually sign one super talented player, you give him the ball, and you want him to outscore the other team, scoring
Yeah.
80 points. Like in Japan, is a tough league. It's like a calculated league, and there's no like guy who can score 50 points in the game. It's impossible. So I think it's way better than people think.
Got you. It's very insightful. So, guys, make sure you check that out. It's coming straight from the mouth of somebody who's in this. He's talking to these players, he's managing these players all around the world. So his advice is probably the best you'll get out here. 15 plus years, man. So, well, very insightful conversation, man. I love it. I got to know a lot more about you. This is really cool. For sure. I appreciate your time, Tadas. Like I said, very insightful stories. Is there anything you want to say to the Basketballverse community or the people before I let you go about the rest of your day?
Well, as soon as it's out, I just want to say, make sure you play. That's I guess all I
Yeah,
can add. Other than that, I think we covered a lot of the stuff.
1,000%. Yes. Make sure you play the game Basketballverse when it comes out. We should be doing some more alpha testing soon. But the way you could keep up on the alpha testing is by following us on Discord, joining our Discord, following us on Twitter, following us on all platforms. We post a lot of news. We'll be dropping a lot of new information soon. So make sure you tune into all of those. Also, in the Discord, you can drop your questions to ask our next guest. We will be dropping our next guest soon. So, guys, make sure you get in the Discord, check it out. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, man. And we're gonna let Tadas go. And that was episode 2 of Courtside Culture Podcast, man. So See you guys later.
All right, man. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.